Minnesota Congressman Dean Phillips trolled J.D. Vance this weekend over comments about Minneapolis.
People talked about how Minneapolis had one of the great quality of lives 5-6 years ago, but thanks to the leadership of Tim Walz has now become overrun with crime, increased rates of violent crime, and so to the point where a lot of people feel like it's easier to move out of Minneapolis than to build a life here.
Yes, Minneapolis has suffered, wrote the congressman. We can agree that both parties have failed our communities for generations, and we agree a lack of consequences is a vitamin for crime. But please do not come to us to shame, blame, and fearmonger. Come with ideas, solutions, and inspirations. Well, that is the Congressman Dean Phillips. So where is Tim Walz? And why hasn't he spent much time defending his state, especially not to the media? It's harder to get for an interview than Kamala Harris. With us now, Congressman Dean Phillips. Good to see you, sir. I think reasonable people can agree that Tim Walz as a VP has been a disappointment as a VP pick. Certainly hasn't delivered in the way Kamala Harris and Democrats thought he would. Are you surprised?
Well, first of all, Leland, good to be with you. I've known Tim Walz for many years, and I hired a number of his staff members for my own congressional team in Washington. And Tim's a good man, and I think he's been a good governor. I don't think that this campaign so far has done justice to him, to be forthright. And frankly, I wish Vice President Harris, when asked questions, would be a little bit more direct with American people, because I think there is a massive appetite and a lot of dismay about politicians who simply try to avoid questions. So I know Tim Walz. I would like to see him shine, and I think that's part of this campaign that has got to put him in a position to do so. And the notion of holding Tim Walz accountable for what happened in Minneapolis after George Floyd's murder is, to me, just absurd. And that's why I took so unkindly to J.D. Vance, who I don't know if he's ever been to Minneapolis before, to come to my city and tell us what a disaster it is. That's exactly the kind of fear-mongering nonsense, BS, frankly, that Americans, I think, are tired of.
Okay, but to be fair to J.D. Vance, almost every day he's taking questions from the press. He's out there having the conversation, and Tim Walz is not. So who is the greater of acting like a politician?
Yeah. Leland, I hear you. In fact, two things can be true at once. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump
so why do you
tend
think
to answer questions pretty directly. And by the way, let me finish.
Why are they playing hide Tim Walz?
I'm dismayed too. That's exactly my point. I'm disappointed. I think Tim Walz and Kamala Harris should be answering questions, should be available, accessible, and direct, and town halls, and not scripted and not measured. I think that's why Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are actually doing quite well right now. Now, what they say is deeply disconcerting to many of us, but I think they're hitting something that's really important to American people, which is at least expressing themselves, whether you like it or not. And this notion of measured, calculated, controlled media circumstances is really, I think, working against them. Time is short, and I would like to think that we'd see more of that. I think that's why they are not doing well amongst independents and moderate Republicans. Yep, and that's solvable only if they're put in a position to do so. And I'm suspecting that Tim Walz is being told to be limited in his responses, and that's not who he is. So I'm disappointed that he's not in a position to shine.
Now, look, he's the guy who ran away when asked about Hamas executing Israeli hostages. You have bucked your party, and it's one of the reasons I have great admiration for you, because you've been willing to say the truth when people knew it, but you were told to keep quiet, especially about Joe Biden's health way back when. Many people don't know you ran for president as a Democrat to try and get a conversation going about Joe Biden's health. Are you at that same point of panic over how Kamala Harris and Tim Walz campaign is doing as you were about Joe Biden?
Well, Leland, I don't panic. In fact, I'm an optimist, and I'm hopeful, and I know America is going to be just fine as long as people participate. But my dismay about the two-party system, frankly, the duopoly, both private corporations that I don't believe are acting in the best interests of Americans. I think they are a big part of the problem. We have angertainment, that entire angertainment industry dividing us, and it's nonsensical. So my panic, if you will, occurred many, many months ago, and it wasn't about my party or Joe Biden. It was about this system that is not serving people.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.